Okay.
Man.
You got this. Now, first of all, wait. Does that thing just... Right, okay. Hi. I'm Megan Brand, or just Meg, and my dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to observe my final major project. I would have bought fireworks for the occasion, but quite frankly, I don't have the financial capacity. That's a fancy transition. I found myself. So that's my F&P with a Z, because that's funky. So for the brief, the scenario was that Kenworth Creative Studio is a Welsh production company that specialises in animation, game art and design, and that they're looking for a creative media product for their first major release. So it would have been the choice of like an animation short film, game trailer, stop motion film, concept book, 3D models, yada yada yada. And then there also had to be a theme to that, and it was basically kind of a choice of opposites, so light and dark, right and wrong, or heaven and hell. So I kind of had to suss out which of those to choose for the project. So to do that, I made like a mood board and a mind map for each of the themes. So I just found all the images which are kind of light and dark, as you might be able to infer through close observation. And that was then Down Oxford Circus theme. There's a reason, I'm sure. But it was like light and dark ideas that I could derive from that. Same thing for right and wrong. Less ideas, because I didn't find it a particularly inspiring theme. And then Heaven and Hell, which I found more interesting, as you can tell by the radios and neon colours. So I hadn't at that point of the project decided yet on the themes. I just brainstormed them to get like an overall idea of which I could get the most creative potential out of. Then I moved on to like trying to determine which project or which concept, media product, would be best suited for this project. So the ones which I found would be most in my capacity or capability to do would be either a comic book, a concept book, or a short animation. So I ended up deciding on animation because I've had the most experience with that, both through over the course of this course and like outside of it as well. It's something that I just feel most comfortable with, and considering the time frame that we had, I would be most likely to complete it. So speaking of the time frame, we had about 10 weeks to complete the project. So I set out a time plan to like keep an overall view of what I'm supposed to be doing, at like which tasks I should have done by when. So I had like the week there, the date of the week, so that would have been 3rd of March, 2025. And then I had like written the activity, so what I was to be doing there. So here it was, plan the new Wix page because I ran out of storage on the old one, so I had to set up a new page and basically just figure out what direction I want to take the project along. And then resources that are needed for need to complete the task. Like in this case will be just computer, Wi-Fi, Wix. And then that continues on for a bit. So the first 2 weeks were mostly planning. At this point it went into research, so just kind of gathering more information for the project. Here it gets to the like practical side of it, so that will be just pre-production. Yeah, okay, that's a bit later. So apparently I only gave myself a week for pre-production. Because it's sort of also half seeped into the production week. I gave a little bit more time for production because I would, considering that animation would take quite a large amount of time to complete, considering like frames and stuff. I gave myself about 2 or 3 weeks for that, and then post-production kind of merges in with production, but that it shouldn't take as long, so I just gave it about a week for that. And yeah, then finally just cleaning up and writing the evaluation. I didn't entirely like end up matching with the time plan as I went through the project. Like, I spent quite a lot of time on the planning stage because I wasn't sure exactly what I should be doing. Like, halfway through I decided to go from light and dark, which was originally what I had chosen as the theme, to heaven and hell, for the sole reason that I just found it more interesting, and also based on other factors like an audience questionnaire that I did at some point, which I will show later on. Production did not take as long as I had expected, because I did a similar thing for a project before that, a music video, so I had it kind of planned out a little better, so I knew more what I'm supposed to be doing. That's presentation, which we currently find ourselves at. Research. So I tried to incorporate a few different kinds of research for this part of the project. So there was a questionnaire to like look into audience. It would be better if I'd actually pulled up the questionnaire, but you get this amount of it. I mostly tried to source like other media which would be related to the themes for doing this, by asking like, do you know of any animations, films relating to the theme of heaven and hell, and etc., light and dark and stuff. I also asked like more about the audience, like in terms of age range. If, for example, if I were to do an animation based on heaven and hell, which audience like age would be most suitable for that, and like between 12 and 16 was kind of the most general answer to that question. So theme related media that was then mentioned in the questionnaire I researched, so light and dark, heaven and hell, right and wrong, basically every film ever. My final decision was to go with heaven and hell because that was also the one that's like based off the questionnaire I had the most examples for. So that was just kind of the one of the most like that I could get the most creative potential out of, if that makes sense. I looked into different types of animation, or I tried to look into different types of animation. I ended up going with 2D because that was just what I found the most stuff on, and again what I felt most comfortable with. So I did secondary research looking into animation, so processes, examples of 2D animation, like traditional and then more digital stuff. And then I did also some primary research, like I tested animation on 2D animation on Krita. It was just as a test. It's a cat. It's interesting. Anyway, so continuing then from 2D animation, I wanted to incorporate tweening into the project because I had like slightly used it before, and I wanted to make more use of it, because if you're trying to get something to smoothly pan across the screen, but you have to like manually move it for every single frame, it's just very frustrating and it does not move smoothly at all. So I followed a few tutorials about like tweening in Krita because I wasn't sure how to do it at the time. So what ended up like having as tests was just this thing. Don't ask what's going on here, I don't know myself. And then this funky running dude, who has no features whatsoever. But he moves smoothly across the screen, so all I had to do was just the legs. So that saved me a lot of work. then I wanted to then look into like visual style that I could use as inspiration for the project. Personally, I like animation from like 90s, early 2000s because it's just more. I find it to be quite expressive. So I looked into examples, specifically Rocko's Modern Life, because I find the animation style will be quite well suited to the kind of project that I was starting to have in mind at the time. So this is then what I ended up using as inspiration for the designs of the characters' backgrounds, basically everything. Yeah, I created some colour palettes, mood boards, things, for more important locations that will be featured for like a majority of the video that I was going to do. So I had one for Heaven and then Hell because they would be featured the most because it's based on Heaven and Hell, obviously. So yeah, then I went on to designing backgrounds for a few of the scenes. That was one that's kind of more toward the start, so it's a bit more neutral. That's, can anyone guess where that is? Any takers?
Heaven.
Obviously, yeah. It's might just be Hell, and that's Tesco's. Then right, so the character was fun to do. So at the very start, before when I was a blundering child and I did not know where this project was supposed to be going, it was that character, and it's a cat in a clown suit. Mostly because I felt like it. Okay. So the character was like a trial for the art style that I wanted to do, because he's funky. And that was before I properly settled on the theme, so he was just mostly his own thing. I later chose the theme of Heaven and Hell, but my first notion at the time was to use light and dark. That was what he was kind of loosely based on, but not really. I had included the character in the questionnaire and he had received positive feedback. So I did decide to kind of carry forward the visual style of the character because I thought if everyone liked it, then I can't just let it go to waste completely. So I wanted to keep the idea of having some random weird animal. There's nothing more random and weird than a possum, in my opinion. And that was also the case because in a lot of cartoons from that era, a lot of the protagonists are just weird random animals. Case in point, Rocko's Modern Life. So yeah, I also wanted the cat. He's cute, but he's not very expressive. He would not be able to hold a fork, and that is quite relevant. So I wanted the character to be just more expressive. I did not feel like putting him onto his hind legs because it wouldn't work. Also, he doesn't have any pupils, and it just generally doesn't work at all. So yeah, I did a few concept sketches for how I might want him to look. And then they did a cleaned up version, and they messed around a bit with the colour adjustments. However, I found the design to be relatively annoying because there's just a lot of small parts. It would have taken rather a lot of time and effort to animate cleanly throughout the scene, especially with little bits of fur and stuff. So I decided to do it again. This time I just took a fennec because it's just a more simple looking animal. It's just an orange cube. So I did concept sketches for that. He's also dead at some point, I promise. Yeah, I gave him some clothes as well, and because, again, I wanted it to be sort of themed on 90s cartoons, that's why he looks like every older brother from that film, from films from that era. So that was in the, final cleanup turnaround that I also used throughout the thing to, copy the colours so that they'd be consistent in all the frames because I don't want them to just randomly be pink halfway through. I did a storyboard then to have a direction in which so that I could know what I wanted to have happen in the scene, and also I'd be able to just tick off stuff that I've already done. However, half of the storyboard that I ended up drawing I didn't use, so that's why bits are crossed. Excuse me. That's why bits are crossed out. Ignore what you just saw. That's why bits are crossed out. Because there were scenes that I could cut that would like improve the flow of the overall video, because you just don't want to be sitting there watching him doing one thing and then doing another thing and then doing another thing, and then you'd be like, right, where's the point? So yeah, I just made it a bit more concise. That's the first 3 pages of it. I think there was like 6 or 7 in all. But yeah, I needed another character for the project. These were my 2 inspirations, references for it. One was Biblically Accurate Angel, because again that's based on the theme of heaven and hell and heaven. But like, I didn't want to use like a stereotypical angel because that's boring. So I used that thing and that thing. Can anyone guess what it is?
A microwave.
You win the spoon, right? So it's actually a toaster. This might come as a shock. So I fused them together, and that came out. And I don't have any regrets. He wears more mascara than me. So yeah, so that's basically what I just said. So that was a piece of concept art that I did to like visualize what that and that would look like together. And I think I did a relatively okay job, honestly. Alright, so then we moved on to the Merry production bit. So I used Crete. Ignore that. You know not to. No, not yet. Hang on, I just skipped 2 slides casually. Right, anyway. So I used Krita for the production. First I did a rough animation. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but like there's a clip of it. Of like what the rough animation was. I colour coded everything so that I knew like where everything was. So here, mostly did him in red. Background bits were mostly in black and stuff, and then the additional stuff was in blue because that just gives a better overview of the whole thing. So yeah, that's that. I then did. I'm going to get that sentence finished, I promise. So I then cleaned it up and started editing it together using Clipchamp, because I honestly can't get my head around Premiere Pro. It doesn't matter how long I look at the thing, I can't find out where anything is. But yeah, I started editing that. This is just without any sound, but that's sort of what it looks like cleaned up, if you can tell from that brief clip. I added then sound using as many like stock sounds or copyright free sounds that I could find, which I either downloaded off YouTube or other pages like my instances, which I was enlightened about the existence of. That helped a lot. So I edited the sound together in like different layers, so that I had more stuff going on rather than having like a singular sound for the entire scene, which would be boring. But anyway, once I had that done, I exported it and everything and uploaded it to YouTube.
You just click the mouse, Meg.
Okay. I have the finished video. So here it is. Fancy transition. Right. Don't know if you can hear it. video. A lot of people were involved in the making of it, and I appreciate the help of all of them. Right, so that was it. Any questions? Like, answer like philosophical questions. Take those outside. Right.
So we've definitely got it. Go.
What? Right, questions? Right, give me a right. I'm not. Give me a PowerPoint slide for nothing.
Yeah, you did.
First off, click the button again. There you go.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about him. This is the most important part of the entire project.
Okay.
This is literally just a dog that stole the cat's outfit.
Speaking of the cat, do you know where you done the like mind maps of the ideas?
Yeah.
And you were saying how right and wrong you wasn't really sure
Yeah.
what the circus theme was.
Oh, if I can find that. Yes. Yeah.
By any chance was it circus themed? Because at the time, that's what
Yeah,
the
it
character,
was.
the cat was designed
That
like.
was like I had originally intended on doing the circus thing, but instead of using light and dark, using like bright and dark. So I wanted like to have kind of like two clown characters, like a brightly coloured one, then like a monochrome one. But like that just ended up not materialising for whatever reason. But yeah, that is like kind of mostly the reason for that. Maybe also for the dog. Anything else? Nick?
Out of random curiosity, what made you want to like merge a toaster with a biblically accurate angel?
Well, at the start of the video, I just needed him to die somehow, and my method of his like demise that I chose was a toaster. So that's why I decided to like bring the toaster back in later in the video to sort of maintain consistency, and also just wrap it up kind of so that it just feels a bit more connected in a way. And then like the angel, obviously, because heaven. Oh. Anything else?
What bit of research guided your ideas most?
I think mostly in terms of like primary research, looking into the tools in Krita, because tweening, I end up using rather a lot of tweening in the project, and like if I hadn't looked into it and found the tutorials and stuff, I probably wouldn't have been able to do that as well. Like the entire scene where he goes up in the lift was just, I just drew one image of him in the lift and just had it like stuck down there and just tweened up to there. And then had the entire thing just in between. So that came in quite useful.
Super. How much did the audience play on your mind when making it?
In terms of like audience, I just but because it was like more targeted toward the age range of 12 to 16, I wanted to keep it within the range of that. It's like still relatively like viewable, so there isn't just blood flying around everywhere. I'm just sticking to the screen. But at the same time, I don't want it to be like, today we're learning how to count and stuff. So it's kind of sort of in between, because he does die, but he doesn't die violently or picturesquely. No, graphically is what I meant. So yeah, that's kind of like where the research part came in. No, the audience part, excuse me.
Super.
Okay.
Well done.